We're speaking with DUI attorney Todd La Neve, and Todd, I've got to believe that some of the people that come before you and seek your assistance believe that they've been wronged in the case, wrongly accused. Is that the case?
That is often the case, Gary. A lot of times people will come in and tell me that they just don't believe the evidence that the officer may have asserted against them is accurate, in any way reliable, and a lot of the times they simply don't believe that they were under the influence. My position is that obviously there are always two sides to any situation. Sometimes people will perceive things differently than the officer did, with good reason. Other times it may be just an act of self-preservation, but the reality is there's very often a big difference between what the person perceived and what the officer perceived.
So how do you proceed in those cases?
Well, generally what we do is once we get all the evidence in hand, I sit down and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I try to create timelines to establish when particular relevant events took place and compare those against other documents that come forth in the evidence production. When I can do that, a lot of times we can in fact show inconsistencies between the officer's written narrative and something such as radio calls that are recorded, and we're able to make that comparison and show that sometimes the officer's recollection was no more reliable than what he accused my client's recollection of being.
When you go to trial, how does that happen, or how does that process work?
Well, typically it's just a situation where we would have to walk through those documents with the officer, pointing out each and every one of the areas that we need to lay the foundation for the argument that we're making. And essentially we get the officer's agreement that these documents are accurate, that they reflect the things that he did, and then we're able to use the other documents to show that in fact there is some variance there. But it really does vary from case to case. It's one of those things that you have to look at each case individually and prepare each defense individually.
It seems to me like you're proven guilty before proven innocent. Do you feel like that's the case with doing these DUI cases?
Very often I do. I'm certainly not an advocate of anybody drinking and driving, but while this is a significant offense, Gary, I feel like DUI has become America's modern-day witch hunt. And we do everything we can with no real regard for the process just to ensure that we get to that end conviction. And so this is truly a case where at times it seems like it's the ends justify the means. That's a tough burden to have to fight against, and oftentimes the prosecutors, the police, the court personnel, the jury come in with predisposed ideas that are very difficult to unseat from their minds when we're trying to seek fair justice.
Sounds like a great reason to contact a lawyer.
Yes, it does.